This is Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy, and I'm your host, K.D. Elizabeth. I'd like to talk today just for a moment about the debates and disagreements amongst the religious as that continues. But before we get to that, I would like to acknowledge the passing of Ariel Sharon. Whether you agreed with him or not, the man walked by his convictions, and he literally fought battles he believed in. He certainly deserves the respect for having walked in his convictions. Now, our subject today is the debates and disagreements amongst the religious, and I find myself reserving comment more and more in social media. And don't get me wrong, I'm not shying away from the truth, and I am not shrinking back. But what was it they used to say? I'm choosing my battles. Because it's occurred to me, we have got to realize those who are seeking Yud-Heh-Vah-Hey, but have a difference of understanding, they're still not the enemy. If they're seeking. Now, the ones who are seeking fame and fortune and all of that, that's a different deal. Completely. I'm talking about those of us who are seeking, but not coming to the same understanding yet. We're called to stand on what we know and to keep seeking. And I know it sounds very cliche here, but we may very well simply be in a different place on the same narrow road. I can tell you right now, I do not. I can't say I don't have the same beliefs I had 5 years ago. Now, I do about Torah, I do about Messiah, but I have a different understanding of some of the things I thought I knew. That's what I'm talking about. I'm wanting more truth, less tradition. And I believe I'm not in the same place I was 5 years ago with that. I know there are things I no longer try to include and incorporate in my observance. I also know I have come to what I believe is a fuller understanding of what it is to truly seek Yud-Heh-Vah-Hey on his terms. Now, I'm not there all the time. I'm not claiming perfection here. I'm not saying I have a whole new revelation. What I'm saying is I believe we would call it maturity. I still have a long way to go, but I'm not where I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And we need to keep that in mind for the people who are coming into a fuller understanding or haven't yet come into that a fuller understanding, but they are seeking. They are following what they understand to follow according to Scripture. And let's face it, we all get taught an awful lot of mistruth. We all have. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. Our society has intermingled a great deal of religious untruth. And it's difficult to sort all that out. So, and some may be at a crossroads, to leave behind some tradition, some man-made tradition, and step onto the narrow path. But the bickering is most unfriendly. I watch some of these discussions and forums boards and things, and I'm thinking, wow, if I didn't know the Creator personally, I wouldn't want any part of that. So, those are the things. We can't bring we can't bring our bickering along with us. That's one of the things that has to keep falling away. And what I'm learning about the truth is it doesn't need a lot of defending. It doesn't need a lot of argument. You can just speak it, and then that's that. As well as the truth not requiring defending, oftentimes, if I'm not thinking of the next argument, I learn something in the discussion. So, one of the contributors for the Goshen Gazette was on a roll this week, making sport of the Hebrew roots contentions. And he's Hebraic, so am I, so it was kind of a family joke sort of thing, but there is truth in wit. And I found it to be a refreshing wake-up call, and of course, a chance to be a bit of a smart aleck myself. He posted a meme with a guy rolling his eyes saying, "Tell me again why using a number 2 pencil is pagan." And I just couldn't resist. As a writer, I mean, it was just, it tickled my funny bone. And so, my response was, "That's right, Aki," which is Hebrew for brother. "That's right, Aki. That's why we must use mechanical pencils." Now, it's all fun and games until it isn't. Chances are no one will begin a new rule about pencils. But there are a lot of rules about other things that are based solely on tradition. And this conversation even made me wonder, it's like, I wonder how many traditions were actually started just from somebody overhearing a little bit out of context. We don't know. This world is really in very unstable conditions in many ways on many fronts. And those of us searching Scripture really do need to cease and desist the witch hunts. If we stand in truth and we're seeking more truth, we don't have to keep teaching we don't have to focus on the untruth. We can sound the warning and keep moving. I've noticed, for instance, Matthew chapter 10 is just valuable. I posted something about it earlier this week. But what I realized was in the same passage that Messiah is speaking, there was definite ominous warning, but also amazing promise. And I think if we really are truly seeking Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh in his word, we're going to find that so many of the warnings come with promise. And so much of the good news, yes, it does include a warning. Sound it and keep moving. That was one thing as we are all talking, preparing and all of that and being mobile. Some of this needs to be mobile in our conversation. Say the words we've been given, but don't add to them. I have a few rules of thumb in choosing battles and avoiding wolves in sheep's clothing, because they are out there, no doubt. I don't know everything, but right off the bat, when someone claims superior knowledge from outside sources, that raises a red flag. Somebody says, "I've studied this, this, and this," or "this contradicts with something in Scripture," red flag, red flag. As a matter of fact, anything I read or hear that raises my eyebrows, that goes on my study list. Doesn't necessarily require that I jump in with an argument. It goes on my study list. Now, if I know that I know there's some untruth spoken, I will speak truth. And then silence can be very powerful as well. And those who are selling fear, forget it. Perfect love casts out fear. But we do need to be prepared. And in that preparation, we may just find ourselves very grateful for very real fellowship with someone who does have a slightly different perspective. As I said, I've learned a lot by listening to people who don't agree with what I thought I knew. I learned a lot. I was speaking with a friend the other day, and this fact came out in our conversation. If any one person got it all right or had it all right, we'd be tempted to follow them rather than Messiah. And he did have it all right, by the way. Still does. But look what happened to the children of Israel when Moses was gone for 40 days, because they were following Moses, not Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh. Even when they had the chance to hear, and when they could hear that, see that smoke, that fire from the mountain, but they say, "No, you go listen. You go listen for us." And Scripture does tell us that Moses couldn't lead the children of Israel into the promised land because he demonstrated unholiness. I also see in that demonstration of unholiness, the children of Israel saw an imperfect human being. As great a prophet and leader as Moses was, he didn't have it all right. We need to keep that in mind. The book of Numbers mentions Moses as being a humble man. As humble as he was, according to Numbers 9:8, he admitted he had to ask Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh, and then he would tell them what he heard. He openly admitted he didn't have all the answers, but he knew the one that did. As these end of days continue to unfold, we may come to a greater understanding of 1 Corinthians 12 and develop a mature appreciation for those who have different gifts and different administrations by the same Spirit of Yud-Heh-Vah-Heh. This has been Before It Was Headlines, It Was Prophecy. I'm Katie Elizabeth.